Welcome to The Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE Incorporated. The goal of this podcast is to build, to inspire, and to empower our audience through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone. I trust that you were well. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline. We're your hosts, business coach Bo Powell and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott, also known as BJE. Our goal is to build, to inspire, and to empower listeners through conversations around the topics of business, leadership, and mental health. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media at Facebook and Instagram. Well, once again, we are honored to have businessman, coach, educator, entrepreneur, husband, father, Lindsberg Pettway. If you've been listening for the past 2 episodes, you already know he is a force to be reckoned with. So we're excited to have this powerhouse once again. We had such a great time on our last conversations, both on air and off air, that we asked him to come back to talk about fatherhood. So our friend and brother, P, how you doing, man?
Lindsberg in the house.
Doing good, man. It's an honor to be here.
Man, it's always a privilege.
I appreciate the connection. I look forward to the communication. And as we always do, the appetizer was enlightening, and we saw a connection there. God had already ordained our steps before we were born, and it's
yes, sir.
God is amazing.
He's amazing. He's amazing. I was I'm teaching a lesson on Wednesday mornings on my Facebook Live, and I'm teaching a lesson. Nothing just happens. So what you just said kind of correlates with it. Nothing just happens. Our life is purposeful, orchestrated, even when things seem random. God knows how to make or connect the dots of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. That's what he does. So,
all things work together.
Yeah. You look like you want to say something, Bo.
No, I was going to say I thought you was about to go in, man. I was just like, hey, man, this ain't
Nah, not today.
I was going to say, hey, man, hold on, bro. Hey.
I'll leave that to y'all. Y'all the 2 powerhouses,
No, man.
Y'all the ones. So look, we just celebrated Father's Day on Monday. So how was your Father's Day and what did you do? Let's start there.
Father's Day was good. It was good. We got up. I went to church. After I went and got a workout, I tried to make sure I got that in early. We went to church, and then we came back and picked up a couple groceries. And my wife was supposed to prepare everything.
Uh-oh.
And she said I didn't have to do anything. She was going to grill. And we got back. The food was laid out. She said, "I'll cook your steak." I said, "No, I'll do my steak. You could do burgers and the brocks, so you could do all that." So I got my cardio. I was riding my bike, and as I was pulling back up to the house, I just smelled something burning.
Oh, man.
So when I got back, the hot dogs had been blackened. So I said, "Babe, I'll do it." And she just, And it's an art to grilling, as you know. It's an art to grilling. Sometimes people look at what you do, and this could be for anything in your profession or athletes or just how you handle things. They look at what you do and they say, "Oh, I can do that." But then when you jump into it, and it was like, "Oh," she said, "the fire was so hot." I was like, yeah, it's a fire. So you got to know how to navigate. So Father's Day was good. I ended up cooking the barbecue portion of the things. And my father-in-law and mother-in-law came over, and brother-in-law, and we just ate and we just chilled. So it was a very laid-back day.
Nice. So as a father, what does fatherhood mean to you?
Wow, fatherhood is it's a great responsibility. I take it like this. We are honored with the privilege of fathering a child. And when we look at the relationship that we have with our Heavenly Father and how He provides for us and how He cares for us and how He forgives us, I think that is translated, if it's translated correctly to your son and to your daughter, can be very powerful. Fatherhood to me, it looks different because my father died when I was 2. So I did not have the opportunity to see a man, how he operated daily, how he treated a wife or a woman, how he shaved, how he dressed, how he took care of the household, how he showed work ethic. So I didn't have that. So fatherhood to me, when I translated to my three sons, I always try to be the example. And I had some bad examples, just different professionals and people that I knew who kind of messed up, did the wrong thing. And then I had some good examples of how to keep and stabilize a marriage and the relationship with your children. So I drew from them. So fatherhood is important for a child, especially, and I'll say this with all due respect, especially for a young lady.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sons is definitely needed, but for young ladies, I think it's definitely needed. And we'll talk about that, I guess, a little later.
So I know you have three sons, right? So in
Yes.
addition to your three sons, what has been your experience with other young men or young women gravitating to you as a father figure and or mentor?
Okay, that's a great question. I started in education back in 1999. And the reason why I got into education, one of my passions was sports and physical fitness. So I became a PE teacher. And as I transcended through the school system, I always wanted to be an example for young men. And that's one of the reasons why I got into education. When I went through the educational process, middle school, high school, I didn't see anybody look like me. There weren't too many men in the school, period, and especially not a Black man. So that's one of the reasons why I got into education. And as I navigated through it, I just became Coach Pettway. And Coach Pettway was no nonsense. He was consistent. He was firm. He was one of the ones that you can come and talk to and get a real answer. So I was in education for 18 years, and I've impacted so many children, both male and female. To this day, they'll call me, "Hey, Coach, I just wanted to reach out to you, find out what you think about this, find out what you think about that." In particular, this was at a school in the city of Detroit, and it was a transition for me because I just left a place I had been at for about 16 years, and I started a new school, and the school was a little rough. And it was this one young man, he kept getting in trouble. And one of the things that he did a very, very foul act on the bus. And that act landed him in my office again with his grandmother, not his mother. And through the conversation, the grandmother stated that he needs an example. And then when she said that, I said, well, maybe he can come home with me, on the weekends. I got three sons. Sure, he can come. He can come tomorrow. I was like, whoa, okay. So the next day he came. He said, my grandmother told me I can come home with you. So he came home with me. On the way home, didn't send him with anything. I stopped by Walmart, picked him up some gear, and my three sons, he kind of fit in between their sizes. So first weekend was great, and every weekend after that, he came home with me.
Wow.
And I was just an example to him, and he ended up starting going to church with us. So I don't take it lightly. Fatherhood is very important, and sometimes it transitions even to the ones that you didn't birth or have. We didn't birth them, but even the ones that you didn't weren't a part of their birth.
That's powerful. Where's the young man now?
The young man has graduated. I try to keep up with him. It's kind of spotty, but he has graduated from high school.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So I wanted to go back, Lindsberg, you had mentioned earlier, and about the importance of fatherhood, obviously for sons, but you also mentioned even more so for daughters,
Yes.
girls. Can you expound on that?
Well, when I look at my sisters, and I have four sisters, and I look at how they navigated through life, and they had my father in their life for a certain period of time. And then I look at my wife, whose father's still alive, who was very active in her life. I think there is a different level of love that can be transcended to their potential husband, boyfriend, because women need, and I'll say this with all due respect, they need that example. My sons see how I treat my wife, how I love her, how I handle her, how I respect her. So as a young lady, they need to see that as well. So they have a certain level of expectation. A friend of mine has a daughter, and he said, I'm her first date. I take her out once a month. I open the door for her. I treat her with respect. And through those actions, I tell her, never lower your standards. I'm the first man to love you. I'll be the last man to love you. And when the man comes into your life who wants to love you strongly, this is the standard that he must adhere to. And what I've found, even before I got married and dating a lot of the young ladies that I dated who didn't have fathers, it was just a different struggle. It was something different. I mean, I know I'm going down a different road, but I just think that a young lady needs that example, because if you don't have it, then you're searching for it. And you might find something that doesn't love you or respect you the way that you need.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. I was just, I wanted to get it while I was fresh on your brain when you mentioned that. So talk to us about, what some of the greatest lessons that you've learned as a father.
One of the greatest lessons I learned as a father is that you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
You don't know what you're doing. If you have multiple children, you cannot parent each one the same, because it's different personalities. And what helped me with that is being an educator. As you go through education process, you learn that some students learn visually, certain students need to hear it, certain students need to write it down. But I learned that early when they were all, I guess, in that stage between 5 and 10. So one son, all I had to do is say, listen, such. It was okay. One of them, this is my 6th time telling you the same thing. So just understanding the different personalities that your child has, that was one of the greatest lessons. I think I mentioned not knowing what you're doing, but using the Bible as the foundation. And that's what I use, the principle of the word to lead, to show the godly character to my children, and to be forgiving. I always use this when I was an educator. You're not what you did. The act that you did, you might have got in trouble. That's not you. That's a mistake you made. Let's talk about it, and let's get back to the foundation of who you really are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking about what you said early about fatherhood being responsible, but then also not really knowing what you're doing as your kids are growing up. So talk, when you talk about the challenges of fatherhood, talk to us about that. What's been some of your greatest challenges?
Some of the greatest challenges, especially as an entrepreneur, is time. Trying to spend time individually with all of them, not just all 3 of us going somewhere, we're doing it together. That's one of the biggest challenges. I have an 18-year-old who just graduated with his associates through the dual enrollment program, and he's leaving to go to college September. And then I have a 17-year-old who's preparing for his senior year, who is a 2-sport athlete, who has football one day, basketball one day, football. So his needs are different. Then I have a 12-year-old who's going to the 8th grade. So the conversation with the 12-year-old is totally different than the one that's headed to Oakland University. And I just had a meeting with them today, and I have meetings, and I said, I'm holding this meeting as I do with my team at work, so that the communication, so let's go over your schedule, let's go over this. And I discuss, and I put my oldest son right in front of me. So he's at the head, I'm at the head. And my conversation to him is direct. And I said, I got a couple more weeks before you leave. And quite honestly, fellas, I don't know if I poured everything I could into him. Now, he has a great foundation, but going back to not knowing all the necessary needs as a father, you want to make sure, and I guess my main thing is making sure that when he leaves, he knows how to wash his clothes, he knows how to be responsible, he knows not to fall in love with her, he knows how to watch him, he knows to sit with his back against the wall. I mean, all the little things that it's necessary to be a man. So, it's different, different challenges for different age groups. And then I got the one that's going to the 8th grade, bringing it back down and then pouring into him the necessary foundation that he needs. So, it challenges is when you have multiple age groups with different personalities.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking that. I said, man, you got them at different stages of development and maturity, man. That's got to be challenging. You know what I mean? So, thinking about that, so what would you like your legacy to be, as a father?
Sunday, and that was one of the questions that Pastor he posed to the men, and he talked about headstones. And a lot of people are doing this new way where you put a QR code on the headstone and you scan it, and then you get a bio of the person. So it gives you a little more. And he mentioned, and it made me think, do you want to be known as the person who had the best yard, or the person who was always sharp? Lindsberg, and he was always put together, or his sons always looked this way. He would do anything for you. And I think the legacy that we all should want was that I was a godly man, that I was able to be an example to the world of God through me. Now, there's a legacy that I want to leave through my companies, financially, and all those things. But I think the most important thing is that I was a representation of God while I was here on this earth. And I think that's the most important thing, because as I have gotten older, in my 50s, more people are dying around me. And when you're 20, 25, 30, you really don't think about that. But when we start hitting this age, when they talk about shingles and all these other things in life, and you start to wonder, like, okay, have I made my impact? And as men, we have a certain level of growth that we want to hit, and I want to be at this level financially in my business. But if you drop dead, what are people going to say about you? So I think the legacy of being a godly man is the most important one, in addition to having a successful business and strong young men who can be a husband and a father one day.
Lindsberg, I want to say this to you. You were talking earlier about you just wondering if you poured everything into your oldest son that you could. And one of the things that I often think about personally is that my father was a great provider, but because he lived miles away, he wasn't in the house. And so there are some things I had to learn on my own, and I stumbled into manhood. And so you're leaving a blueprint for your son so they don't have to stumble into manhood. That's commendable.
Right. And I remember you said that. And I am in the same boat as you. I stumbled into it. I got a lot of the work ethic principles from my football coaches. And they were men who didn't look like me. They were other nationalities, but they had a goal to win games, and they poured into young men. I went to a Catholic high school, so there was some biblical principles, but I got the work ethic from them. I got the spirituality portion from my grandfather. It was holiness of hell. That's it. Two things. Holiness of hell. Don't turn no TV on. It was just straight and narrow. So trying to balance that in addition to what was going on in the world in the 80s, and then going away to school in the early 90s, it was just a balance. So a lot of the things that we picked up on, how to treat a lady, what to do, what it meant to be a man. And unfortunately, you had to have multiple female friends. That was a status symbol. So a lot of the things that I was taught was incorrect, and I make sure that I have those conversations with my children, with my sons.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And I can relate to that as well. Just having to stumble into it and figure things out, and have to pull from this person and this person and this person, which I think in many ways can be advantageous in many ways, but that's another conversation. So, and Lindsberg, I know you were putting a lot of stuff out there, especially with your last comment, but I wonder if you had to sum it all up. Speaking to the fathers and the father figures who are listening in, what would be the one message you would like to convey to those who were listening to us today?
The one message about fatherhood is you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be present. I think that you need to be in your child's life. The ultimate goal is to be in the house, to be the example. But if that's not the ideal situation, just be there for them. Be there for them so they can see you, feel you, touch you, hear you, because our voice resonates different than their mother.
Absolutely, man. So, well, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your hosts, BJE and Bo Powell. So don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household. So join us and let us hear your feedback, because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care and God bless.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business coach Bo Powell and leadership coach Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline.